Hello, and welcome to another video in IMT's Inspector series. Today we're going to be working with potential linkages. My name's Tyson Carter, and I'm the Manager of Client Education and Communications at IMT, and folks are constantly asking me exactly what is a potential linkage and how does that fit into the task model for IBM InfoSphere MDM Inspector. So let's take a quick look. One of the key things that we try to determine in MDM is whether or not two records are the same person. So here we have a record from source A and a record from source B. What we want to determine is whether or not these two people really are the same person. If they're from different sources, we consider this a potential linkage. If these two records were from the same source or from the same original database, we would consider them a potential duplicate. Now, let's talk a little bit about how we go through this process. So for example, if I compare two people that are clearly not the same, the score is going to be relatively low. If I compare two people who look exactly the same, the score is going to be very high. But if I compare two people that seem to have some qualities that match, the score is going to be somewhere in the middle. And when the score is somewhere in the middle, specifically if it falls between the clerical review threshold and the auto-link threshold, that's going to become a potential linkage task. So that first group that we compared, that negative 9.5, clearly not the same person, it's a non-match and we ignore it. The records that were exactly the same, clearly a match, because it scored a 19.8, that's high enough for us to link, and we go ahead and consider it the same. But it's these cases where they fall in the middle that we need to review as a potential linkage. So let's head to Inspector and take a look. And let's take a look at this task for Beulah Norval. When we look at these two records for Beulah, we can first check and see exactly what's the same about them or what's different. So if we choose to highlight what's the same, we can click the green equal sign. The name is exactly the same. Both records are female, and both records have the exact same home phone. We do have a missing date of birth. We have different social security numbers, but if we look at how those social security numbers are different, we can see that the same numbers are in the social security number, but they seem to be scrambled in some way. Perhaps there are a couple of dyslexic typos that may have happened in the data. But this isn't the kind of pattern that we see when this is a mother and daughter. This really looks more like a typo. Now, I might need to do some additional investigation, but if we determine that these two Beulah records are the same person, all we need to do is move them to the same entity. I can take this record here from source B, move it up to join the record in source A, and now they're part of the same entity. Because both of these records have a task trigger, that's what that clipboard indicates, I'm going to mark both of them as resolved, which will take two tasks off of my task queue. And now I'm going to save. Of course, if the situation were that these two records were not the same person, I would resolve it differently. So let's take a look at an example like that. Here we're going to open up a task for Dale Ilham. When we open up Dale Ilham's task, we see that there is Dale Ilham and Mac Gilhelm. It's pretty clear that these two people are not the same person. So what I would simply do, because they both have a task, is mark both of these as resolved. I could do that by coming up to the top, marking resolve and applying to all, or I could of course come to each of these individually and marked resolved. So in cases where they are clearly not the same person, we can just go ahead, mark the task resolved, and save. So that's how we work with potential duplicates. Thanks, and hope to see you next time.